Hi, welcome to ESSVE's demonstration video. We are going to show how to use ESSVE's components in Tekla structures. The ESSVE package consists of 16 main components and 11 sub-components. Only the main components are used when modeling. If we look at the angle connector, it has several attribute files to choose from, depending on what kind of size and situation the angle connector will be placed in. The product code and the type prefix will change with the type of angle connector. In the bottom of the dialog box, it is possible to put number of nails needed per angle connector. Under the prefix tab, it is possible to change material, if needed, by switching the type from standard to special. This also opens up the fields under the picture tab. It is not recommended to change anything because the components correspond to ESSVE's products. The component is placed in the model by choosing 2 points, insertion point and direction. If you want to change the size of the angle connector, load an attribute file and modify. If we look at the beam choose, you can choose between inside and outside flaps. You can choose size directly in the dialog box, which is related to product code and type prefix. Number of nails and bolts can be given. The tab Pick Order shows how to place a beam shoe in the model. If the type is put to special under the prefix tab, it is possible to put a distance between the beams. To put the beam shoe in the model, simply choose the beams. If wrong size of the beam is chosen, the product code will show special, and if it's really wrong, it will show in the model too. There are 3 different concrete bolts to choose from. The functionality is the same for all 3. You have the concrete bolt, the golden anchor and the safety expander. The size is chosen from the drop-down menu diameter and length. The insertion can be edge distance or bolt XY distance. Direction can be modified under the General tab. To put the bolts in the model, you simply choose the plate and where to put the bolt group. The Ett screw has an attribute field in the dialog box where you can choose the right size of the screw. You can define up to 10 ETTs in Z direction and 4 in XY plane. You can also define a tilt angle in XY and Z direction for the ETT. A distance between the screws can also be given in both directions. To put the ETT in the model, choose insertion point and then direction. The insertion point should be where the column and beam meet. The fork anchor has a drop-down menu with 3 different types related to the product code and type prefix. Number of nails is possible to give. The fork anchor has the same functionality under the prefix tab as the other components. To insert the fork anchor in the model, choose insertion point and then direction. There are several attributes files to choose from depending on what size the Gerber connector should have. Number of nails can be given, same as before under the prefix tab. Direction can be modified under the General tab. Under the Pick Order tab, a cut distance can be given if the connected beams are not symmetric. Norm plates have a lot of attribute files to choose from depending on what size it should have. Number of nails and the prefix tab are the same as the other components. The easiest way to put the norm plate in the model is to change the work plane so it corresponds to the situation. Choose the right size of the norm plate. Then choose insertion point between the beams and direction. The Purlin anchor has a drop-down menu in the dialog box for different sizes. You can also choose if some of the Purlin anchors should be created or not. Number of nails can be given for each Purlin anchor. Under the Pick Order tab, an offset can be given from the middle point where the beams meet. The Prefix tab is the same as the other components. Direction can be modified under the General tab. The Purlin anchor universal has the same functionality as a Purlin anchor. The rafter anchor has a fixed size and can be shifted from front to behind in placement of the beam. The Prefix tab is the same as the other components. To put it in the model, simply pick the first beam and then the second one. For the ridge connector, the length and angle is given depending on the actual situation. The Prefix tab is the same as the other components. Number of nails can be given. The ridge connector has to be placed manually in the model by picking insertion point and then direction. The T-beam anchor is placed in the model by picking the beams in right order. You can choose between right and left direction. The Prefix tab is the same as before. Also here the number of nails can be given. The Trim Fix has a drop-down menu in the dialog box for two different sizes. An offset can also be given for the placement and number of nails. The Prefix tab is the same as the other components. To place the Trim Fix in the model, simply choose the beams. The universal connector has the same functionality as a T-beam anchor. All components have a help file, which shows the specific help for the actual component. The help file also consists links to ESSVE's website. There are two ESSVE reports connected to the components, ESSVE bolt list and ESSVE list. The ESSVE list shows all the ESSVE connectors in the actual model when you create report from all. The product code, etc. is shown in the report. The same is for ESSVE bolt list, where only the ESSVE bolts are shown. Thank you for your attention.